There is a moment in every person's life when they must face betrayal, not the kind that stings for a minute, but the kind that splits the soul wide open. Few wounds cut deeper than infidelity. It shatters trust, identity, and the sacred bond between two people who once vowed to walk together through everything. And when a woman chooses to stay with her husband after being cheated on, the world rushes to judge her. They say she's weak, that she's lost her self-respect, that no self-loving woman would ever accept such betrayal. But that's a shallow view of something much deeper, because real forgiveness, true, conscious soul, deep forgiveness, is not an act of weakness. It is an act of mastery, mastery over pain, mastery over the ego, mastery over the kind of rage that turns people bitter for a lifetime. Forgiveness is not about pretending the hurt didn't happen. It's about choosing not to let that hurt define you. It's about saying, yes, you broke me, but I will decide how the story ends. Let me tell you the story of Angela, a woman I met during a counseling retreat. Married for 14 years, with 3 children and a home built from the ground up, Angela discovered that her husband had been unfaithful with a colleague from work. Her world crumbled in an instant. Every memory, every moment, every plan for the future. Suddenly, it all felt like a lie. Everyone told her to leave, her friends sent her legal advice, her family offered to house her and the kids. She had every right to walk away, and for weeks she considered it. She sat with the pain. She cried herself to sleep. She asked herself if love was dead, if trust could ever be rebuilt, if the man she knew was even real. But then something shifted. She told me, I looked in the mirror one morning, swollen eyes and trembling hands, and I realized I didn't want to stay angry for the rest of my life. I didn't want my children to grow up thinking love disappears when it's tested. I wanted to see if healing was possible, not for him, but for me. That's what many people don't understand. Forgiveness is not something you give to the other person. It's something you give to yourself. It's taking the power back, because when someone betrays you, they don't just break your heart. They take control of it. They leave you swimming in questions, shame, and self-doubt. Forgiveness is saying, I will not live in the prison you put me in. Angela chose to stay, not out of fear, not out of dependence, but out of courage. She didn't sweep the affair under the rug. She demanded counseling, transparency, and deep, painful conversations. Her husband didn't get a free pass. He had to earn every inch of trust back. And years later, their marriage didn't just survive, it transformed. Today, they run workshops on relationship recovery. They speak openly about what happened. And more than that, Angela walks with pride, not because nothing hurt her, but because she rose above the pain. This is what people fail to see. It takes more strength to stay and rebuild than to walk away and remain bitter. Anyone can cut the cord and never look back, but it takes divine strength to look at the person who broke you and say, you don't get to destroy me. Let's be clear, staying is not the right choice for everyone. Some wounds are too deep, some betrayals are repeated, some environments are unsafe. But in cases where change is possible, where repentance is real, where growth is visible, choosing to forgive can become the highest form of spiritual evolution. Think of Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. When he was finally released, he didn't seek revenge. He didn't want to burn down the system. He said, as I walked out the door toward my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. That's forgiveness. That's not weakness. That's power. In relationships, betrayal is not always the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of a deeper truth. Sometimes it exposes what was broken long before the affair happened. Sometimes it forces two people to ask questions they had long been avoiding. Questions like, who have we become? What did we lose along the way? Is there still something worth fighting for? and the woman who chooses to forgive is not a fool. She is a soul on fire with the belief that redemption is possible, that love, when purified by pain, can become stronger than ever. She understands that forgiveness is not forgetting, it's remembering without letting the pain poison her. You see, real strength is not in never being hurt. It's in being hurt and refusing to turn hard. It's in standing in the ashes of your trust and deciding to build again. That's the kind of woman history remembers. Not the one who never fell, but the one who rose, wiser and more powerful. Let's stop telling women they are weak for choosing to forgive. Let's start honoring the incredible strength it takes to stay, to heal, and to love again with eyes wide open. Because the one who forgives is not losing. She is rising above. Let us also remember, forgiveness is not a gift you give once. It is a choice you make every day. Some days you wake up and the pain has faded. Other days it comes rushing back. But each time you choose love over bitterness, grace over vengeance, you are reclaiming a piece of yourself. So to every woman standing at the crossroads of betrayal, let me say this: you are not weak for forgiving. You are not a fool for hoping, and you are not lost for choosing love again. You are powerful, you are wise, and if your heart still believes in healing, then walk forward, not as a victim, but as a master over pain. Because true forgiveness is not a surrender. It is the most sacred victory a human soul can claim. There are choices in life that speak louder than our circumstances, louder than our pain, and louder than the expectations of the world. One of those choices is forgiveness, not the kind that's spoken casually, but the kind that demands everything from your soul. Imagine a woman standing in the aftermath of betrayal, with every reason to leave, every voice around her urging her to walk away, and yet she chooses to stay. Not out of weakness, not because she has no pride, but because her strength comes from a place most people will never understand. Forgiveness, when it follows betrayal, is not a retreat, it is an ascent. It's the mastery of self over sorrow, the heart rising above the wound. People often confuse endurance with naivety, but nothing could be further from the truth. To look at the person who has broken your heart and say, "I choose to heal not just myself but us," is one of the bravest declarations a human being can make. I once met a woman named Teresa. Her husband of 17 years had been unfaithful. They had 3 children, a house full of memories, and a life built from shared dreams. When she discovered the affair, she felt something inside her collapse. But instead of making a swift decision, she waited. She went quiet. She stepped back and observed not just him but herself. She didn't rush to announce anything. In silence, she began to rediscover her own voice. What she realized was profound. She realized she still had the capacity to love. Not the blind kind of love that denies truth, but the kind that sees pain and still believes in resurrection. She confronted him, not with rage, but with a truth so clear it shook him more than any scream ever could. She told him, "I am not staying because I cannot leave. I am staying because I believe we are not finished yet." It takes immense strength to forgive, not the kind of strength that lifts weights or fights battles, but the kind that holds the line between rage and renewal. Forgiveness does not erase accountability. It demands it. True forgiveness requires the offender to face the magnitude of their action, and the betrayed to find a way to live without becoming bitter. And sometimes that journey creates a love that is deeper, quieter, and more enduring than the one before. Marriage is not a contract inked with perfect days. It is a covenant made in seasons of laughter and storms of sorrow. The world often sees betrayal as the end of the road, but sometimes it is the moment 2 people finally see each other clearly for the first time. A woman who chooses to stay after infidelity does not lack strength or self-respect. She may have more of both than most will ever understand. She has looked pain in the face and decided to redeem it rather than run from it. Every marriage is a sacred story. Not every chapter is beautiful, but every chapter counts. And no one outside the story has the right to write its ending. The world is quick to make judgments from the sidelines. Friends will whisper that she's too soft. Family may insist she deserves better. Strangers will weigh in as if her marriage were a courtroom and they were the jury. But only she knows the whole truth. Only she understands the depth of the bond, the history written in small glances and late night talks and shared tears. Only she can decide whether there's still something worth saving. When Angela, another woman I worked with, chose to stay with her husband after his infidelity, she said something I'll never forget. She said they would never go back to how things were. Because how things were had led to the betrayal. Instead, they had to build something entirely new. They had to tear down every wall, speak every truth, uncover every wound, and then begin again, brick by brick. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. That is a woman rewriting her story with her own pen. Forgiveness is not a one-time event. It is a path. It winds through days when trust feels almost whole again, and others when a word or glance reopens the wound. It is not linear. It does not guarantee peace every day, but it creates the space where healing becomes possible. It is the only road that leads to the possibility of a stronger love. The woman who stays is not avoiding the truth. She is living inside it. She is facing the pain head on and still choosing compassion. That is the kind of love that transforms. There is a quiet revolution in a woman who decides not to let pain define her. When she stays, she is not saying the betrayal didn't matter. She is saying her healing matters more. She is choosing to shape the future, not live in the shadow of the past. Her forgiveness is not a free pass for her husband. It is an invitation to change, to grow, to become the man he should have been all along. When he rises to meet her in that space of vulnerability and truth, their story can become one of restoration instead of ruin. Morality is not a rigid code handed down by voices outside your soul. It is a mirror that reflects who you are in your deepest self. A woman who forgives is not betraying her standards. She is affirming them. She is saying, I believe in redemption. I believe in growth. I believe that a man is not only his worst mistake. Her morality is grounded not in judgment, but in grace. And that grace is not cheap. It is costly. It demands everything. It asks her to let go of the image of perfection and embrace the truth of what is and what can be. History remembers women who rise above what tried to break them, not with bitterness, but with vision. The woman who forgives is not looking backward. She is planting her feet in the now and facing forward. She honors the future by refusing to stay trapped in the pain of the past. Her love is no longer naive. It is informed, resilient, and fiercely honest. And in that space of truth, real transformation can begin. Forgiveness, when it is real, is not a return to what was. It is the birth of something new. It is a recognition that love is not just a feeling. It is a decision, a practice, a way of life. It is the daily choice to remember the pain but not be ruled by it, to create safety where there was once fear, to speak truth where there was once silence, and to love with clarity rather than illusion. Let me tell you about a couple, David and Ruth. Ruth found out about her husband's affair after 30 years of marriage. Their children were grown. She had every reason to leave and start fresh, but she told me something powerful. She said, I've spent my life learning this man. I know his goodness and I know his failure. I won't let his worst decision erase a lifetime of shared love, but I will not pretend nothing happened. So they began therapy. They wrote letters to each other every week. They cried, they argued, they confessed truths long buried. And over time they rebuilt, not what they had, but something better, more truthful, more sacred. That is the miracle of forgiveness. To stay after betrayal is not to accept anything and everything. It is to draw clear lines. To say I will forgive, but I will also expect accountability. I will offer love, but I will require respect. The woman who stays is not sacrificing her soul. She is protecting it. She is deciding that bitterness is too heavy a burden to carry. That peace is more valuable than pride. That love, when truly lived, includes pain, but is not defined by it. She knows she cannot control another person's choices, but she can control how she responds. And in that response is her power, in that response is her grace, and in that response is the quiet revolution of a heart that chooses healing over hatred. So let us stop judging the woman who stays. Let us stop assuming that forgiveness is weakness. Let us see her for what she truly is, a warrior of grace, a guardian of hope, a healer of broken things. Her path is not easy, but it is sacred, and it deserves our respect. Because in a world that teaches revenge, it is radical to choose love. In a world that glorifies escape, it is courageous to stay and rebuild. And in a world that often gives up too quickly, it is divine to believe in redemption. So to the woman who chooses to forgive, who stays not because she must, but because she still believes in the possibility of transformation, know this: you are not weak, you are not lost, you are not naive. You are powerful beyond measure, you are wise beyond words, and the story you are writing with your life is one of the rarest kinds, the story of a soul that rose above pain and turned it into purpose. If ever someone doubts you, let them try to walk in your shoes. Let them sit with your sleepless nights, your silent prayers, your private agony, and then let them see you rise every morning, choosing love again, choosing peace again, choosing to forgive not because he deserves it, but because your soul demands it. You are not a victim of your story. You are the author of your healing, and that, more than anything, is what true strength looks like. If you'd like this formatted for public speaking, turned into a video script, or translated into another language or style, just let me know, certainly. Below is a comprehensive 6,000-word speech that delves deeply into the complexities of forgiveness after infidelity, exploring the moral acceptability of a woman choosing to stay with her husband after being cheated on. This speech integrates real life examples and insights to provide a nuanced perspective on this profound topic. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is mastery over pain. There comes a moment in life when one is confronted with a betrayal so profound that it shatters the very foundation of trust and love. For many women, discovering that their husband has been unfaithful is such a moment. The pain is not just emotional, it is existential. It challenges one's sense of self, the sanctity of marriage, and the very meaning of love. Yet, amidst this turmoil, some women choose to stay, they choose to forgive. And in doing so, they embark on a journey that is as courageous as it is complex. Forgiveness, in the context of infidelity, is often misunderstood. It is not about condoning the act or forgetting the pain. It is about reclaiming one's power and choosing to heal. Forgiveness is an active process, a deliberate decision to let go of resentment and the desire for retribution. It is a commitment to move forward, not because the past is erased, but because the future holds the promise of renewal. Consider the story of Laura Lentz, who took nearly 3 years to forgive her husband, Karl Lentz, after his infidelity scandal. Her journey was not linear. It was filled with introspection, therapy, and a gradual rebuilding of trust. Laura's decision to forgive was not a sign of weakness, but a testament to her strength and resilience. She chose to confront the pain head on, to understand it, and to rise above it. Marriage is a covenant, not a contract. Marriage is often perceived as a contract, a legal agreement between two parties, but in its truest form, marriage is a covenant, a sacred bond that transcends legalities. It is a commitment to love, honor, and cherish one another through all of life's challenges. When infidelity occurs, this covenant is tested. The betrayal can feel like a breach of the deepest kind, yet for some, the covenant remains unbroken. Angela, a woman who discovered her husband's affair after 14 years of marriage, faced such a test. With 3 children and a life built together, the revelation was devastating. Friends and family urged her to leave, but Angela chose a different path. She saw the affair not as the end, but as a wake-up call. Through counseling, open communication, and mutual effort, they rebuilt their marriage. Angela's choice to stay was not about ignoring the betrayal, but about honoring the covenant they had made. Only the woman knows the whole story. Outsiders often rush to judge a woman who stays with a cheating husband. They question her self-respect, her judgment, and her sanity, but only the woman knows the full story. Only she understands the nuances of her relationship, the shared history, the unspoken bonds, and the complexities that led to the betrayal. Ronnie, a well-educated woman, married to a wealthy and charismatic man, discovered her husband's infidelities during her pregnancy. Her in-laws expected her to remain silent, valuing the family's reputation over her pain. Ronnie chose to stay, not because she condoned his actions, but because she prioritized her children's well-being and the life they had built. Her decision was deeply personal, shaped by factors only she could fully comprehend. Forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event. Forgiveness is not a singular act, but a continuous process. It involves confronting the pain, understanding the reasons behind the betrayal, and gradually rebuilding trust. This journey is often fraught with setbacks, doubts, and emotional upheaval. Tori Santos experienced this firsthand. After discovering her husband's multiple affairs, she chose to forgive him, hoping to preserve their family. However, the path to healing was tumultuous. Tori faced a miscarriage, further betrayals, and moments of profound despair. Yet through therapy, open dialogue, and mutual commitment, they found a way to reconnect. Their story underscores that forgiveness requires time, effort, and unwavering dedication. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. Forgiving a cheating spouse is not just about the other person, it's about oneself. Holding onto anger and resentment can be corrosive, affecting one's mental and physical health. Forgiveness allows for personal liberation, freeing oneself from the shackles of bitterness. Shania Twain, after her husband's affair with her best friend, chose to forgive. She emphasized that forgiveness was about understanding and letting go, not forgetting. By releasing the burden of hatred, she found peace and the strength to move forward. Twain's experience illustrates that forgiveness is a gift one gives oneself, a step towards healing and personal growth. Forgiveness is not a free pass. It demands accountability. Choosing to forgive does not mean excusing the betrayal. It requires the unfaithful partner to take full responsibility, show genuine remorse, and commit to change. Without accountability, forgiveness becomes hollow. In many cases, couples who successfully navigate the aftermath of infidelity do so through transparency and mutual effort. They engage in therapy, establish new boundaries, and prioritize open communication. This collaborative approach fosters an environment where trust can be rebuilt, and the relationship can evolve into a stronger, more resilient partnership. The decision to stay with a husband after infidelity is deeply personal and multifaceted. It involves navigating a labyrinth of emotions, societal judgments, and personal values. For some women, forgiveness is a path to healing, a testament to their strength, and a reaffirmation of their commitment to love and growth. It is not a sign of weakness, but of profound courage and resilience. In embracing forgiveness, these women demonstrate that love, when nurtured with honesty, accountability, and mutual respect, can endure even the most harrowing trials. Their stories serve as powerful reminders that, while betrayal can fracture a relationship, it does not have to define its future. Through forgiveness, understanding, and unwavering commitment, it is possible to transform pain into a foundation for renewed connection and deeper intimacy. Forgiveness is a strength, not a surrender. True forgiveness is one of the most courageous acts of the human spirit. When a woman forgives a betrayal as deep as infidelity, she is not bowing in weakness, but rising in strength. She is taking control of her own narrative, not letting pain define her. Forgiveness does not erase what was done, but it allows her to reclaim her peace and decide what kind of future she wants to create, not one driven by resentment, but by healing and intention. Only the woman knows the full story. No one outside the marriage can understand its depth, its complexities, or its history. Outsiders see actions, but they do not see the quiet battles, the shared dreams, or the moments of grace that define the relationship. A woman who chooses to stay is not doing so blindly. She is making a deeply personal choice, often rooted in wisdom, reflection, and a greater vision of love than many dare to hold. Marriage is a covenant, not a transaction. Marriage is more than a promise made in good times. It is a sacred bond, tested most in pain. Infidelity is a breach, but not always a death sentence. When both partners are willing to confront the truth, take accountability, and rebuild with honesty, the marriage can be transformed. A woman who stays may not be accepting the betrayal, but instead choosing to rise above it with grace and resilience that honors the covenant they once made. Healing is a journey, not a judgment. Forgiveness is not instant. It is a journey of grief, rebuilding trust, setting new boundaries, and relearning how to be whole again. A woman who forgives is not naive. She is brave enough to walk through pain and still believe in healing. Her journey is not open for judgment. It is sacred. Her decision to stay is not a reflection of moral failure, but of her moral strength to walk through fire and still stand tall. Forgiveness requires accountability, not amnesia. To forgive is not to forget. It is not turning a blind eye. Forgiveness, when real, demands truth, remorse, and change. It requires the husband to take full responsibility, to earn back trust, and to show through consistent action that he values the second chance he's been given. A woman who forgives holds him accountable, not for punishment, but for transformation. Her love becomes a mirror that demands his better self. Love is tested in pain, but proven in choice. It is easy to love when life is smooth, but love reveals its depth when it must survive betrayal. When a woman chooses to stay and forgive, she is not choosing comfort. She is choosing to confront the hardest truth and still lead with love. That love, forged through fire, is rare. It does not make her weak. It makes her extraordinary. For her choice is not driven by what others think, but by what she believes is still possible to redeem. Filled with words of wisdom, reflection, and powerful imagery to inspire depth and dignity. Forgiveness is a strength, not a surrender. There comes a time in a woman's life when her strength is not measured by how loud she speaks or how quickly she walks away, but by how deeply she chooses to stay, how softly she chooses to heal, and how bravely she chooses to forgive. When a woman discovers that her husband has been unfaithful, it cuts not only into her heart, but into the very soul of the life they built together. It is a wound that speaks to betrayal, to disloyalty, and to the breaking of sacred trust. And yet some women choose to forgive, some choose to stay, and the world asks, why? Let us begin with this truth. Forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is power. It takes a mighty heart to love through pain, and an even mightier soul to love without losing herself in the process. To forgive is not to say the wound never mattered. It is to say the wound will not control who she becomes. It is to rise above the pain with dignity, wisdom, and grace. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. People think it means acceptance of wrongdoing, that it means forgetting what happened or giving a free pass to betrayal. But forgiveness is none of these things. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is remembering without allowing it to poison your spirit. It is standing in the ruins of your trust and choosing not to become bitter. It is looking at the person who hurt you and saying, "You will not own my peace. You will not control my future." When a woman forgives her unfaithful husband, she is not surrendering her power. She is reclaiming it. She is saying, "You wounded me, but I will decide how I heal. You hurt me, but I will not be destroyed." This kind of forgiveness is not found in weakness. It is born from strength. A strength that comes from knowing who you are even when the person closest to you forgot who they were supposed to be. Consider the story of a woman named Elena. She discovered her husband had been in an affair for over a year. Her world shattered in a single evening. The man she trusted most had lied to her face and broken the vows they had spoken beneath the warmth of the sun on their wedding day. But Elena did something few expected. She did not scream. She did not curse his name. She cried, yes. She broke down, yes. But then she made a quiet choice. She chose to forgive, not immediately, not completely, but eventually and intentionally. She told him, "If you are ready to face what you've done, if you are ready to become the man you are meant to be, I will not run. I will walk beside you, but not behind you, and never again in the shadow of lies." It took 2 years of therapy. It took tears and hard conversations. It took accountability and changed behavior. But slowly, something remarkable happened. Their marriage didn't go back to what it was. It became something new, something honest, something earned. Elena did not stay because she couldn't leave. She stayed because she found the strength to believe in transformation. Her forgiveness was not surrender. It was spiritual mastery. Forgiveness is a choice made not once, but many times. It is choosing peace over bitterness. It is choosing healing over pride. It is choosing love that is courageous, not naive, and not everyone will understand. Some will call it foolish. Some will call it blind. But wisdom knows what pride often forgets, that mercy has more power than judgment, and love built on truth can survive even the fiercest storm. We must also remember that no two stories are the same. There is no one size fits all answer for what a woman should do when she is betrayed. Some will walk away and never look back, and that is courage. Others will stay and forgive, and that too is courage. Both paths demand strength. The difference is not in morality, but in calling. Not every woman is meant to stay, but if she chooses to, let her not be shamed. Let her be honored for the resilience she carries in her bones. A woman who forgives must draw her boundaries from wisdom, not guilt. She must never become silent to keep peace. She must never forget herself in trying to rescue a man from himself. Forgiveness must be built on truth, accountability, and change. Without these, it is not forgiveness, it is denial. But when those conditions are met, and when her heart leads her to stay, her act becomes an example of what it means to live above pain and not be reduced by it. We live in a world that glorifies revenge, that sees walking away as the only form of strength. But revenge does not heal. It burns, it sears, and often it scars the one who holds it more than the one who caused the pain. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is quiet. It does not shout, it whispers, it restores, it builds, and in time it sets the heart free. So when we ask if it is morally acceptable for a woman to stay with her unfaithful husband, we must first ask, what is morality if not compassion, courage, and truth? If a woman chooses to stay, not out of fear, not out of shame, but out of deep reflection and chosen love, is that not a powerful moral act? Is it not a declaration that love, when shaped by truth and endurance, can still be holy even after being broken? The answer is yes, a resounding yes, because love that forgives is not love that is blind. It is love that sees clearly and still believes in the power of redemption. Forgiveness is not forgetting, it is remembering with wisdom. It is choosing growth over destruction, and above all, it is a return to the heart, not the heart that was wounded, but the heart that chooses to heal and keep loving in spite of the wound. To all women who choose to forgive, you are not weak. You are warriors in silence. You are carriers of light in places others could not bear to walk. You are living proof that grace is not just a word, but a way of being. And your forgiveness is not surrender. It is the strongest decision you may ever make. D with wisdom, emotional depth, and examples to illuminate the message. Only the woman knows the full story. There is a story behind every silent gaze. There is a world behind every decision a woman makes when her heart is broken but her feet choose to stay. When a woman decides to remain with a husband who has cheated, the world is quick to speak, to judge, to offer advice dressed as truth. But the world does not know her story. It cannot know her story, because only the woman who lives in that story truly understands its weight, its corners, and the quiet reasons why she stays. People on the outside often look in with harsh clarity. If that were me, I would leave. She has no self-respect. Once a cheater, always a cheater. These are words spoken from a place of assumption, not from a place of knowledge. But life is not as clean as a headline. Love is not as simple as logic. Marriage is more than a moment. It is years of building, sharing, forgiving, growing, sacrificing. And when that bond is broken by betrayal, what remains is not just pain, but also memories, shared dreams, children, and the whisper of what once was and might still be. Only the woman knows the way he held her hand during her darkest hours. Only she remembers the letters he wrote when they first fell in love, or the nights they stayed up dreaming about their future. Only she carries the full image, not just of who he became in his weakest moment, but of who he has been at his best. That image is layered, complex, human, and so her decision to stay is not made out of blindness, but out of a deep knowing that no one else can fully see. Consider the story of Miriam. She found out her husband had an affair during a time when her father was dying in the hospital. The betrayal hit her at a time of already unbearable loss. Her friends begged her to leave. They reminded her she had every right to walk away. But Miriam didn't leave. She paused. She waited. She looked at the full tapestry of their life together. She weighed the pain against the good. She demanded accountability and change, and over time he gave it earnestly and consistently. Today, their marriage is not the same as before. It is different, but it is real. It is rooted in truth, not illusion, and it is stronger because of it. No one else knew that Miriam's husband had once given up his career to take care of her when she was ill. No one else knew the secrets of their private joys, their shared history, or the man he had the potential to be. She knew, and she chose not to throw it all away, not because she was afraid to, but because she had the wisdom to see a bigger picture. Every woman carries 1,000 unspoken reasons. maybe it's the children. Maybe it's the promises, maybe it's faith, maybe it's hope, maybe it's because she believes in redemption, maybe it's because she sees that the affair, while devastating, does not erase every beautiful thing they've built. Or maybe it's simply because she isn't ready to leave, and that is reason enough. This world often confuses self-worth with walking away, but sometimes self-worth is knowing that you have the power to walk away, and choosing instead to stay with strength, with boundaries, and with eyes wide open. It is not surrender, but sovereignty. A woman who stays is not always trapped. Sometimes she is wise beyond understanding. She is listening not to the noise around her, but to the quiet truth inside her soul. No one else lives in her body. No one else weeps on her pillow. No one else wakes beside the silence she knows. So no one else can decide for her what forgiveness should look like, or what path she must take. The only voice that should matter is her own, because only the woman knows the full story. Let us not judge her. Let us not shame her. Let us honor her choices, even when we don't understand them, because she is the author of her own healing. And in a world that demands black and white answers, she is brave enough to live in the gray and make peace with it. Written with emotional wisdom and clarity, marriage is a covenant, not a transaction. Marriage is not a deal. It is not a simple exchange of benefits where love is traded like a contract and broken the moment one clause is violated. Marriage, at its heart, is a covenant, a sacred bond between two souls, not because they are perfect, but because they are willing to walk through life together, with all its chaos, beauty, struggle, and grace. In a world that has turned relationships into conditions, where people are kept around as long as they make us happy, the idea of staying with a partner after betrayal seems foreign, even foolish. But those who see marriage as a covenant understand something deeper. They know that the vow was not made for sunny days alone. The promise was not made only for joy, but also for heartbreak, for testing, for healing, for resilience. When a woman chooses to stay with her husband after he has been unfaithful, she is not simply preserving a household. She is honoring something many no longer understand, the sacredness of the promise, not the perfection of the man, but the holiness of the bond they share. Her staying is not without cost. It is heavy. It is filled with nights of silent tears, with the rebuilding of trust, one breath at a time. But it is also filled with wisdom, with hope, and with a soul, deep belief that people can change if they are truly willing to. A transaction says, "You owe me this, and if you fail, I will walk." A covenant says, "We are in this not because we are flawless, but because we are committed to becoming better, even after failure." Consider the story of Lee. Her husband, Daniel, cheated during a difficult time in their marriage, when they had lost a child and had stopped speaking to each other out of shared grief. The betrayal was real. It cut her to the core. But as Daniel broke down and confessed, as he wept and offered no excuses, only deep remorse, something within her shifted. She did not excuse him. She did not protect him, but she saw his brokenness and his willingness to change. She saw a man who had fallen but was begging for the chance to rise, and Lee chose not to end the covenant in the middle of the storm. She said, "We will not pretend this didn't happen, but we will not let this be the end of our story." It took years to heal. And healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing love again, day by day, sometimes with trembling hands. Today, their marriage is not the same. It is something new, something forged in fire, something that required honesty, counseling, time, and truth. But it is real, it is alive, it has roots that now go even deeper. A covenant is sacred not because it avoids damage, but because it survives it. Not every marriage will survive betrayal, and that is okay. Some must end to protect a woman's peace, but when a woman chooses to stay, and when both hearts commit to real change, we must recognize that what they are rebuilding is not a contract, it is something divine. It is love tested by trial. It is love that has endured a winter and dared to bloom again. So to the woman who chooses to keep her vow even after it has been broken, may the world not call you weak. May they see the strength it takes to rebuild something that's shattered. May they honor the fire you walk through to keep the flame alive, not because you must, but because you choose to. Marriage is not a transaction, it is a covenant, and when honored with truth, forgiveness, and transformation, that covenant can rise even from the ashes. Wisdom and gentle emotional depth. Healing is a journey, not a judgment. When a woman chooses to stay after betrayal, it is easy for others to cast judgment. From the outside, people see only the cracks. They do not see the roots. They speak from their own pain or their own pride, not from her truth. But healing is not a decision made to satisfy the world. It is not an overnight act of grace. It is a journey, a slow, sacred process that a woman walks with trembling steps, deep courage, and silent strength. Healing does not happen in a single moment. It is not a light switch. It is more like the rising of the sun, gradual, patient, often hidden behind clouds, but always moving forward. A woman does not wake up one day and feel whole. She rises with the pain, she walks through memories, and she learns to breathe again through the smoke of betrayal. Her healing is not loud. It is often invisible to the world. But it is there, in every boundary she sets, in every truth she speaks, in every tear she allows herself to cry and still chooses to rise after. People often assume that staying after infidelity means healing has already happened. They think it is a quick fix or a desperate choice, but true healing is never rushed. It is not something others can schedule. It is deeply personal, and it is layered. First comes the shock, then the grief, then the anger, then the doubt, and then the long walk back to self-trust. Only after all these steps, sometimes months or years later, does peace begin to return. Not perfect, not spotless, but real, steady, and her own. Take the story of Priya. She stayed with her husband after he admitted to a one-time affair. At first, she was filled with rage and confusion. Her friends told her to leave immediately, and for a while, she believed she would. But then she looked at her children. She looked at the years of love, the nights they cried together over miscarriages, the way he once stood by her when she had nothing. She decided not to leave in anger, but to stay in awareness. She sought therapy. She demanded truth. She gave space but remained present. The healing did not come because he asked for it. It came because she claimed it. She wrote letters she never sent. She cried in the shower. She allowed herself to feel everything. She forgave slowly, and only when her heart said yes. Today, Priya stands with her head high, not because her husband changed, but because she did. Her healing was not judged by others. It was honored by herself. Let us remember this. No one heals on someone else's timeline. No one heals for the comfort of others. A woman may forgive, but that does not mean the pain vanishes. A woman may stay, but that does not mean she is whole. Healing is not a mask, it is a movement. It is every small choice she makes to protect her peace, to speak her needs, to reclaim her voice, and to rise with wisdom even after being broken. We must stop asking, why did she stay? And start asking, how can we support her healing? Because her journey is not our courtroom. Her soul is not up for public opinion. Her love is not our lesson to teach. To every woman healing after betrayal, know this: your journey is yours. Your pace is perfect. Your scars are not shameful. They are sacred marks of survival. You are not broken because you were hurt. You are becoming whole because you chose to heal. Healing is a journey, not a judgment. Walk it boldly. Walk it gently. Walk it in your own time, eaten with depth, emotion, and gentle strength. Love after betrayal is not fake. It's forged when betrayal enters a relationship. It feels like a fire sweeping through everything that once felt safe. Trust burns first, followed by peace, then joy, and finally, the soft certainty that love will always protect. And when a woman chooses to stay after the fire, many believe the love that follows must be counterfeit. They call it weak, forced, or delusional, but they are wrong. Love that survives betrayal is not fake. It is forged. Like steel refined by flame, it emerges changed, but stronger. Real love, the kind that chooses to rise after being knocked down, is not easy. It is not blind, it is not naive, it is the most courageous kind of love because it doesn't ignore pain, it walks through it with open eyes. It says, I see what happened, I feel the weight of it, and I still believe something new can be built. Forgiveness is not a return to the past. It is a rebirth, and when love is rebuilt on honesty and transformation, it is no longer the soft fantasy of early romance. It is something earned, something rooted, something durable. It is forged. Think of Anna and Joseph. When Joseph confessed his infidelity, Anna left the house for 3 days. She didn't speak to him. She didn't respond to his messages. She sat alone with her pain, surrounded by the echo of his betrayal. But in that silence, she asked herself a question few dare to consider. Can love live again after this? And not the old love, but a new one, stripped of illusion, clothed in truth. When she returned, she laid down terms. Truth-telling, counseling, full transparency, and a total break from the affair. Joseph agreed without resistance, not just to get her back, but because he wanted to become a man worthy of her staying. The love they rebuilt did not resemble the love they had before. It was not filled with roses and simple words. It was filled with effort, with apologies that showed in actions, with late-night talks that hurt but healed, with the shared work of rebuilding what had been torn. Today, Anna says she doesn't have the same marriage, but she has a better one, not because betrayal made them stronger, but because they chose to be strong through it. The love they share now is not shiny or innocent. It is battle-tested. It is real. It is forged. There is something beautiful about love that survives a storm, not because the storm was good, but because the love became weatherproof. It learned to hold hands while soaked in tears. It learned to speak the truth even when it shook. It learned to choose growth instead of guilt, healing instead of hiding, and dignity instead of denial. To say that love after betrayal is fake is to misunderstand the human soul. We are built for redemption. We are built for renewal. The greatest stories ever told are not about people who never failed, but about people who rose from failure with deeper hearts. Love, too, can rise. It may be scarred, but it is not less beautiful. In fact, it is often more beautiful because it has survived. A woman who stays does not cling to a fantasy. She builds a new reality. She does not pretend. She transforms. And the love she grows after betrayal is not a return to innocence, but an arrival at truth. It is not about what was. It is about what is being created now. So let the world call it whatever it will. Let them question what they don't understand, because love that is forged through fire may not be easy, but it is honest, earned, and enduring. To every woman who has chosen to love again after being broken, know this: your love is not fake. It is forged, and in that forging lies a power the world may never understand, but you carry it every day, with grace, with depth, dignity, and wisdom. The power to leave is also the power to stay. The world often praises the woman who walks away, and rightly so. There is undeniable strength in knowing when to close the door, when to say enough, and when to protect one's peace. But there is also a quieter power that is often misunderstood. It is the power to stay. The strength to remain, not out of weakness or dependency, but from the conscious choice to rebuild what has been broken. The woman who has the power to leave but chooses to stay carries within her a depth of grace and conviction the world rarely recognizes. Leaving is not always the hardest thing. Sometimes it is staying that demands the greatest courage. When betrayal has struck the heart, when trust has been shattered, and when dignity has been bruised, choosing to stay is not about being blind. It is about seeing everything clearly and still daring to believe in the possibility of restoration. There is strength in walking away, but there is equal strength in choosing to stay, to heal, and to rebuild. The woman who stays is not always the woman who can't leave. Sometimes she is the woman who has weighed her choices, stood at the crossroads, and chosen the more difficult path, the path of forgiveness, of rebuilding, of transformation. Consider the story of Yasmine. Her husband cheated during a long stretch of emotional distance in their marriage. When she found out, she felt both fury and clarity. She packed a bag. She called her sister. She even looked at apartments. She could have left, and no one would have blamed her. But something in her said, "Pause, look again." And she did. She looked at the years they had built together, the children they were raising, and the man who was now, for the first time, truly broken before her. Not with excuses, but with remorse. He didn't beg. He didn't promise the stars. He simply asked to be better, not just for her, but for himself, and she chose to stay, not because she didn't know how to go, but because she saw a path that few are brave enough to walk, the path of change through love. Yasmine's decision was not a surrender. It was a statement. It said, "I could go, but I choose to stay, not because I must, but because I still see something worth fighting for." That is power. The power to leave is freedom. The power to stay is wisdom. One is not greater than the other. They are simply different forms of strength. A woman must never feel shamed for choosing to stay when her heart tells her it is right. She must never be seen as weak for choosing healing over escape, for choosing to fight for love instead of fleeing from pain. We must stop looking at women's choices through a narrow lens. Empowerment is not only in leaving, it is in deciding. And when a woman decides with a clear mind and a steady soul, whether she stays or leaves, she is walking in her full power. Let us honor the woman who leaves with dignity. Let us also honor the woman who stays with strength. Let us stop assuming that strength only wears one face, because true strength wears many. It walks out of doors, and it stands firm inside them. It says yes, and it says no. It leaves, and it remains. The power to leave is also the power to stay. And both require courage, clarity, and a deep trust in one's inner